Hello, ActiveSage here on the Sage channel, and we are back in Star Citizen for another extremely close look. And this time, this is an extremely close look at the Reliant core. Now, we're going to try to make sure this video isn't quite as long as some of the other ones, and that should be a little bit more easily done because this ship is actually very symmetrical. As you can see, in a lot of ways, it's symmetrical from left, right, and top, bottom. Now, of course, it does have landing gears at the bottom, which throw that off a little bit, as well as some weapons mounting points. But overall, the ship is, well, very symmetrical. And this is a ship that I originally didn't think I would be too keen on when I first saw the concept images. It just sort of felt like this big, rounded, almost blobby thing. But once it actually got in the game, and I had a chance to fly about in it and actually, well, walk about it, it turned out to be pretty dang beautiful. Now we're going to go ahead and do our close look at a lot of the little details here, and then we're going to take it into free flight mode to get a look at how it changes, because this ship does actually morph. If you don't know, and I've bumped into something here, wonderful, the Reliant core here rotates about. It goes from, well, the way it is now, into flight mode, where these big wings out to the left and right actually flip up and down and become this big vertical pylon, which looks absolutely incredible. So let's start up our tour, actually, this time, oddly enough, with the interior of the ship, because it's one of the easiest things to get to, and it's not a gigantic interior, and well, unlike a lot of other ships, it's also not just a cockpit. Let me go ahead and remember the right button on the controller. There we go. It is triangle or Y, depending on which one we want to use. And you can see right away it opens up, and it actually reminds me a lot of the Millennium Falcon, oddly enough. Can I get you to close again, please? Thank you very much. There we go, close that up. Oh, and it got us on top of it, so now we know how we can get up there. So let's pop that one more time, and I want you to watch this thing open up, because it is pretty dang beautiful, the way it just pops the... Yeah, look at that. That hood trunk there pops open. I can actually go ahead and use my mouse here. You can see our cursor right here, and you see this thing right here, this whole big thing here pops up a little tiny bit before flinging the rest of the way up, and it is awesome. And then, of course, this thing, which really reminds me of the Millennium Falcon, drops down. It's even got nice little supports here. As for details, because it's our extremely close look, you'll notice that we almost have what looks like speakers right here, almost like it's the back of a car. It bumps out right here, which is just awesome before leading over and bumping back down. And even though that has that beautiful angle I like, it does have this rounded feel to this, and including this, which makes it feel like a nice sort of seal, like this would just and stick into here and lock it in nice and tight. Down the ramp, you can see they actually took it ahead and stuck the detail in here to bump this large flat metal pane down. I think this is probably all just one big flat metal with the textures that are very well done, giving it some detail. And you can see we have some nice little hinges darted about there, and of course the large rounded extra step here, and these hinges actually allow this to rotate, and you see rounded corners, so they match up with this. And once again, we'll go ahead and close that up again. By the way, I do have my mouse back. Last time we didn't have it. It is right alt slash. I can put that on the screen right now. So right alt slash allows me to bring that down. I'm actually using a Wacom tablet, so I can aim a little bit more efficiently when I'm pointing at little details. So let's close that again. And I love how it thunk, that last little pop in, like it really is holding it into place. So let's pop this open one last time. Love that. Oh, it's so beautiful. Let's also get up here and crouch ourselves down. And you can see we do have a nice indentation right here. It's a bit strange, actually, looking at it. This guy right here was cut in and then comes over to a very hard edge right here. You know, this is a very hard angle. Usually such a thing would be actually very negative, but oddly enough, we're not seeing any weird geometrical freakouts or anything like that, so that's pretty good. Also, we can notice the hinges here, they actually did a little texture detail to separate out, so it's not just a cylinder here. Actually, there's a nice little line there to show like where this piece is connected into that and that on the other side, and this little puck right here that reaches out like it's welded in. Looks like it's all modeled out too, so it actually shows, you know, functionality. It's actually well thought out, and I suspect if we were to close it would actually move. In fact, let's go ahead, rotate ourselves into here and press the button C. Yep, it does actually, if it's fully animated, that little piece right there. Very cool little tiny amount of detail. And luckily, I was wrong about this big flat platform. Oh, why'd the camera do that? Flat platform. I don't know why our camera is doing this. It seems to be having a hissy fit. We're alright though. I think maybe my Wacom tablet, if you touch a Wacom tablet, when you're in just normal first-person mode, it goes a little bit crazy. But anyway, we can see here, the details I thought were just all flat. Look at this. You can see a little drop down right there. Ooh, might hear some laughter in the background. Family over. Hey, it's Thanksgiving. But anyway, you see a little drop down right there into this trough, which also has a beautiful texture and a lot of normal maps and stuff. So this is actually modeled in these little troughs here. Right here, this isn't properly modeled in, I do not believe, but they don't need it. The detail there is good enough. And it's also something worth noting is that this nice gentle curve right here, which you can see over the whole thing, it's very nice. And you can also see some detail where this goes in a straight line right here and then goes at an angle all the way down, which is pretty damn nifty, actually. And it acts as, well, just look at that, the way it travels up and then curves a little bit to go straight up into the main body of the ship, where it's all a very square space, basically. Let's also crouch back down. Just wanted to look at this thing, because it is amazing that they managed to get that sharp angle there without having an issue, because really, in a way, what it is it's like this thing here, the way it bulges up, gentle curve, and then flat across, and gentle curve back down. That is coming from the top all the way down to here, but they've done this indentation here into it, and you see that it's like a boolean, where they just cut away this sort of chunk. Very nifty. And I suspect that, I was going to say suspect it played a role with the upper area locking into place, but this flips over and covers over it, so I don't know. Maybe once upon a time, this design was meant to be mirrored on the actual paneling right here. Anyway, let's go ahead, hop ourselves up into the ship a little bit more. You can see the ship's doing that little jitter thing. Ships, unfortunately, still do that from time to time when we're in the hangar. Now that we're in here, we can take a look at these lovely little pistons right here. You can see that they both have the same texture on them, because you see this rather pronounced scratch right there, and then the same thing is right there again. But it is pretty nice. It looks like they are fully modeled in, a little tiny puck right there. If we were to actually go ahead, I really wish I could move and use the mouse at the same, and use the Wacom tablet at the same time. But yeah, look at that. They most definitely did model all of that in these little, what do you want to call these things? Cylinders. There's a proper word for it that I've forgotten. I've just spent like 5 minutes saying words. I can't find the right one. It's closest I could get is pin, where this goes through there. It's like an axle. Anyway, pretty cool that. And you can see they even have this little model detail here, which is actually blowing my mind, and the fact that it looks like they have a little cylindrical piece, this little silver thing that runs across there. It's sort of to hold this little black puck around the thing together. And the overall design here is pretty nifty, that they have the big flat area, slight curve around the top of it, but then it comes down in a triangle, gently meshes in there, following MISC's style, because this is a MISC ship, following the cylinder all the way down. Cylinder, was that the word I was looking for? Anyway, and then it flanges out, flat surfaces, and flanges back in with a little color break up here to separate them out, which is pretty damn nifty. And then if we were to look down some more, you can see it goes down to the very bottom here, which is pretty cool. A lot of just texture breakup, I think, right here in the middle of this, but it's still pretty cool that they put a puck in here and then have it gently bulging, or pinching into the center here, where it meshes into this huge rectangular indentation, which is inside of this large rectangular outcropping, which has this little nice angle I like, but the corners themselves are rounded, as you can see here, before dropping into a larger rectangular drop-in. And you see they actually have some texture work here around the outer edge, so it's not just like this with a cut-in, it actually has a little border between the main surface and the drop-down, with this nice little black line that they sent running around the whole thing. Very, very cool, that. I like that an awful lot. If we were to move our camera over a little bit, you can see the whole thing holding these pistons into place is pretty cool. I mean, look at this, the way it comes out, drops down, out, and then flattens. You know, it's this huge flat surface, but it also carries on the same design style of having these rounded corners, has the same straight down, drop at an angle, not rounded there, but it fits. It's a nice counter to all the roundness up there, and it also gives a very strong feeling like, yes, this can hold the door, indeed. And a nice use of negative space here with this sort of triangular chop out right here, which is even just not a straight triangle because it drops down and then comes over before going back up. And we have a few bump outs right here with a coming out at an angle, then flat, and then whoop, straight out to a puck. And if we were to go ahead and rotate our camera here, yep, you can see they're flattening out right into those wall supports, which are actually modeled in a lot like a proper modern day aircraft, or relatively modern day aircraft, where they have these sort of design rib struts that come along the ship here. Very, very cool. And then it looks like almost a flat plateau where this large beam here runs all the way along the ship, but it looks like right here it comes out and then goes whoop and then flattens out the rest of the way. Let's see if we can actually stand up here. We might be able to see a little bit better. Yes, indeed, we can. It's not the biggest ship. If we're to go in the third person, you'll actually see that we can fully stand up in here, even if we had a helmet on, we'd have just enough room to stand up, which is pretty damn nifty. Unfortunately, Star Citizen's FOV is locked around 60, so you can never get a proper sense of immersion or depth out of things. When you're in first person, you can't get the sense of scale really at all, but you can get it when you hop into third person, and hopefully in the future they'll unlock that FOV. That way we can get it up to 75 or ideally 9D. Get some more immersion in here instead of feeling like you're sitting 6 feet away from your monitor. Alrighty, let's go ahead and crouch ourselves back down, and we'll carry on from the back once more. Some of this you will have seen before in other MISC ships, so I'm going to try to go over a little bit quick, but you know me, I like to babble and waffle on about a million things. I do love this design here because it's like the interior of an airplane where you'd be storing your stuff in there. It doesn't look like it's any proper storage, but it's still pretty nifty, and the texture is very interesting with the darker sort of plasticky metal here, followed by the shiny normal metal here with nice little vents, little icons and stuff, and I like these little clips here, like it's ready to push buttons and remove all these panels, like the whole thing would come apart. Similar to the ribs here, we also have this little divide up right here with this running up and down. Pretty sure it's all just in the texture work, but it works very well. And you'll also see that since this is a pinched area of the ship where the landing gear comes down, and then remember we mentioned earlier how it goes into a more square shape right here, well, this also, of course, then bends inwards over there. If we can go ahead and walk up to it now, that would be ideal. There we go. So you can see how it bends in, and we'll crouch down that way we can get a better look at it, which is pretty damn nifty. So you can see it comes inwards here, and it's not just a hard edge right here, you can see it's just smoothed edges right here and here. Pretty nifty. You can even see that same design is carried on with these beautiful orange pipes, which really adds some nice breakup to a lot of the dark grays, almost blacks, and then the normal silvers. It's awesome to have this sort of orange that just pops every now and again. You see that's followed out through the whole ship. I usually don't talk about colors too much, usually just shape and design, but here you go, you can see the orange. If you let your eye flow about, you'll see it all over the bloody place. These little pops of orange, which I really love. Alrighty, let's go ahead, move our camera back a little bit here. Looking up at this MISC thing here, I believe we saw these a fair bit within the what was that beautiful gigantic beastie, the MISC Starfarer. It took me a second there, but yeah, MISC Starfarer, where we had a bunch of these beautiful lights, which I absolutely adore, because well, let's go ahead and get a little bit closer to them and just stick our nose right up to them. Look at that. It looks like little tiny light strips in there, little tiny maybe LED uber duper little light things, but the fact that it's got that plastic texture on top of that, which has a little bit of parallax to it, lets it feel like it's got that sort of ribbity plastic above it that you could run your finger across and hear that vzz. It reminds me so much, as I've said a million times before, of Alien Isolation. We also have a little indentation here, and then of course our MISC thing, Musashi Industrial and Starflight Concern. Concern? Oh my goodness. Anyway, moving on from there, let's follow these orange pipes, shall we? So you can see that they come out, or come from, this huge sort of bulk that we have right... Uh-oh. Yeah, we got a world hole. Yeah, it's a world hole. Shit. Pardon my French, but yeah, we got a world hole right here. Circle that. That would be a world hole. That is no good. That's basically where we're seeing out of the ship. Now, because the ship has a LOD mesh around it, which means if you can't see anything, you shouldn't be able to see anything on the other side of it. It's not going to render it. Well, it's not rendering anything out there, but I'm pretty sure that's a world hole where we're actually seeing out of the ship right there, which is not ideal. It's the same on the other side. You can't see it from this angle, but yeah. Anyway, let's try to ignore that. Hopefully the devs will see this and fix that. But you can see that this is our big, beautiful rectangular piece that's just sort of stuck in here. You know, I say it's sort of stuck in here. In theory, that shouldn't work, but because this has this angle where it angles up and goes straight up into the ceiling, and this has the same thing, it sort of works where they're meeting together like they're press sealed or something. Works pretty well. Black line right here almost doesn't work, but I think we can forgive it, as if these whole flat surface here are modular pieces that are clinked into there. Mind your head, nice little touch there, and of course this whole block that I'm so in love with, just because it's a big rectangle, has these bits that come out, as we said before, but it's pretty cool that they come straight out before having a bit of a bend going at an angle, and then a bit of a bend as they go back in. This one has a bit of a bend and a bit of a straight line as well. Pretty nifty. Then they head back into pretty much the same sort of shape right here as we had seen just right there, except for this one right here is a little tiny bit thinner, obviously. Carries on with some of the same texture we've seen on other bits of the ship, and then really cool, you can see behind that same sort of glass, you can see those pipes carrying on again. It looks a little bit strange right here, where you can see that this sort of triangular cut in here, where I think they should have just had a flat line there or something, or moved that up a little bit, because it looks like it's about to clip through this whole piece of plastic. It doesn't really look necessarily like they've cut through this big support beam here. It looks just sort of like the support beam is about to break at those 2 points, because this little bit of orange is so dang close to the flat part. Not ideal, but it's a good idea. It needs a little bit of love, I think. In fact, I think they might need to add another, bump this up a little bit so it actually feels like there is actually a bit of metal here, because this feels very flat right here, where it feels like this is just a flat surface, like a piece of paper that's been cut open right here with another clear piece of paper laid in, where you need to have a little tiny bit of geometry right here along the whole thing to give it a feeling that it's actually bumping up into there. I think it's, it's annoying to have to add a little bit more, but I think it'll be worth it. Because you got things like this over here where the geometry goes whoop, 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 nice little bit of a curve, and then down, and that gives you a good feeling of this huge piece right here being attached to the side wall, which is pretty damn nifty. In the center, we got the same sort of thing we had over there, just another one of these big modular cube pieces. Pretty nice. Thought I saw another world hole there in the corner, but luckily I did not. You gotta watch out, Sage's eyes are open. We do have indeed a little issue right here that I found, where, remember how I said this felt like paper? You can see it is just, there's no other, this should have come all the way to the far wall, or it should have had a bump in junction like it did over where it first started, like down there by the other orange pipes. Needs to have that again here at the bottom, and then have the orange pipes coming out of it. Oh, my mouse must have struck the pad a little bit there again, because right now you can see very clearly that this piece of geometry just stops right here, and you can see into the opening right here. It's pretty much a world hole, but luckily this other piece of metal leads all the way up to the ceiling. Yeah, we do have another support here, which is pretty nice, running the whole length. Very nifty. Shame those pipes don't come through to connect in with these two right here. I believe that's the idea, that they would continue on into the wall and somehow loop up here. Maybe it'd be pretty nice if right here these looked like they were curving into the wall. That way, if you just pulled this geometry over to the wall, it would look like these pipes are moving into there, inside the wall where you can't see them curving out, and then coming out back out of the wall right here to carry on the rest of the way. Pretty cool, even if you can see the polygons very obviously right here. It's pretty cool that they have these big cylindrical pieces stuck in there with the shiny metals there. Let's go ahead and move ourselves out a little bit. We've seen this before. I think I waxed and lyrical about it for about 10 minutes previously on that, oh, I forgot its name already, Starfarer, was it? Tour, where we have these little curve, straight down, rounded, I said curve, it's an angle where it shoots up from the wall, and these come out, over, and back down and around. I love these designs so much. Love those. I'd almost want some in my house just to have them on next to doors for the heck of it, just because they look so cool. Very, very nifty. In the floor in here, it's all stuff we've seen before. These little gravitational pads here to help you move and store luggage or cargo. Very, very nifty. They still hold up pretty well. This sort of like a MISC icon floor paper here. It looks like it might be stretched a little bit. Yeah, it is stretched indeed. Yep. Because you see here how all their sides are equal, basically. Oh my goodness, we bumped our mouse like crazy. You can see how all the sides are equal right here, where this side is pretty much equal to this side, and so on and so forth. Whereas these, you can see these two right here are elongated. It's been stretched. So this thing has been stretched up and down too much right here. So that's a UV fix that could be needed there, really. They're a little unfortunate, that. Everything else looks about right and pretty nice. Yeah. And I think we can just pretend that these are going under the floor panels a bit or something like that. And I think they'll work fine. Pretty cool, all the floor break up here, a lot of detail. I mean, as you can really see it against the far wall here, where you can see the wall comes down, comes at an angle. We got our nice little lights installed there, flattens out, and then this is a very hard square piece right here, but it is beveled edges, so you don't get any sharp edges that are like take you completely out of the experience. Nice rounded here before it rounds back in, so this is one big rounded piece at the corners, but it's still sharp edges, really. Of course, little tiny bevel, but it's nice. You know, it feels like a sturdy floor piece, not like the ceiling pieces, which have all these nice curves on it. In the floor, you don't necessarily want those curves because your foot would get stuck in it. Pieces of luggage might get snagged on it when you're moving them in and out. You might drop something and fall in there and get snagged a little bit or something. But it's nice to have the corners right here when it's bumping up against the far wall or this sort of bulkhead thing right here. Let's also go ahead and spool our shelves around and check back over here. Anything else to report? Not really too much. Just some interesting stuff with this white line that runs about there. You can see the white line here running all the way along, sort of mapping out the area you would be putting cargo in as well. These little yellow stars. Pretty nifty thing. Yeah, pretty nifty. And I love these little lights here. I can't tell if they're actually carved into the side of the ship or not. Let's lower this ramp here. And in fact, let's lay on the ground, shall we? No. I did not intend to... Alrighty, back inside the ship, and I'm pretty sure that indeed those oh god, this is dangerous. Those lights are not modeled in, they're just a piece of very well done texture work with a offset map sort of thing to give them depth, a parallax map, so when you move you get a better sense of depth. Very well done. On the walls, we've seen these before inside the Freelancer and the MISC, beautiful MISC Starfarer. Pretty dang nice. I love, it's pretty simple stuff. It does look, again, like it might be stretched a bit. Like these right here feel a bit wider than these do right here. So I think this might have been stretched a little bit as well. So they need to kind of bump it in. I think they might have done that because it's a tiling texture, I think, from this point right here, tiles to like this point right here. So they might have done it to try to hide that. I guess in the end of the day, it's all right. It is fabric, so fabric could theoretically stretch. So let's just assume it's stretched. Got a little bump in here, more orange pipes. You've seen all this before. It's all pretty well done. Lots of little bevels and details, and love these little outcroppings here that pop back in. Little clamp supports there holding everything in. These little run lights, like they had those in the I think in the Freelancer bridge and the Starfarer bridge. Very, very nice stuff. If we were to really quickly look over here, we got our fire extinguisher, which you can see, I think they took the same texture from right here and just scaled it down and mushed it a bit. Basically, they didn't mush the texture, they just used the geometry. A little tiny bit of that awesome glass. I love the mixture between the fabric and the glass. It's just awesome. And the geometry here itself is pretty cool, and the fact that it bumps out, and yeah, same design we've seen elsewhere where the corners are smoothed, but it'll still have sometimes these harder sort of angles created between this one and this one here. Very cool. I love like those 45s. Love them, love them, love them. Very, very cool, and you can see for the most part, it looks like it's actually welded into the wall there. You can see like this little bit of texture here really makes it look like this piece behind it's separate, almost like you could pop those clips right there, maybe another clip there and another clip there, and pull the whole thing off the wall and replace it with something else. Like on the other side, if we were to change and look over here, you can see it's something completely different, where they have this little like control panel here, where hopefully in the future we'll have to press that button to lower the ramp instead of just aiming at the ramp. Maybe, who knows. Pretty nice little piping here too. Love the fact that they actually take the time to put in these little clamps here to hold it in place, and you can see they're not even just a rectangle, they actually have this little drop down and then drop out and then go the rest of the way into the wall. Pretty cool. Same thing here, it's a different clamp. This one is just a rectangle, but it seems to work better because it's a lot taller, and then you see more of them up there, which seems to work very well actually, and the pipes disappear into this sort of junction box there in the ceiling. Now let's see, any junction box over here? No. But that still looks pretty damn cool, doesn't it? Especially the fact that there is geometry in there. Like these little cylindrical things are cylinders that have been modeled down inside a rectangular cutout, inside a larger rectangle, which has this one nice slant. Love it. Absolutely adore that. Alrighty, let's, we've seen these walls here before. I think they're actually, well, are they modeled in there? Doesn't look like it. I don't see any polygons. I suspect I would, but it's still a great piece of work. These things here, they really give you a great sense of depth. I believe they're just using a parallax map or something like that. I think there's a modern equivalent that I don't know the proper name of. Yeah, it's impossible to tell because it works so dang well nowadays. It's, yeah, I love those. It's just awesome. Yeah, either they're modeled in there or that's one of those super duper parallax map things working perfectly. Anyway, as we move into this area here, I think we've seen some of these before in other MISC ships. Once again, the Starfarer and stuff had these running along hallways, where at the bottom of it, there's a nice little tiny light there. We probably saw that earlier when we were crawling around. Can we risk getting down on the floor and maybe shooting back out of the ship all of a sudden randomly? Coolio. You can see these are properly textured, these little rubber mats. But you can see there's a tiny little lights stuck on the bottom of these. Pretty dang cool. A lot of nice texture breakup. The model itself isn't the most advanced, but it's a nice one. Oh dear. Anyway, pretty nifty. I love this little hallway, actually. Again, it sort of reminds me of the Millennium Falcon, almost like maybe the little path that led to the ladder that goes up and down to the turrets or something. This is such a small ship, but it's oddly reminds me of the Millennium Falcon the most out of most ships. Also, the fact that the shape of the door here is very similar to the one that led to the cockpit in the Millennium Falcon. Very, very nice. Ceiling, we got some more lights. Same texture work here that we've seen used like over here, or more specifically, I think right here. I think it might be the exact same one, just scaled up. Yep. And that same little lights, of course, they're a little smaller, and I adore them completely still. They look so awesome just having them right there, like these nice little run lights. The orange pipes we've talked about before. I love the fact that we have a breakup right here, where we have this huge rectangular section here with the pipes inside them, and then we got this tiny little one over here just before it breaks into the other area. So cool. And all the texture work here is nice, how it pops up and all these little things where it feels like it's made out of a billion little pieces you could push together and all this stuff or take apart. And of course these large axis panels actually look like we could go ahead and take them off. I don't think they'll ever, they might let us actually with the component system and stuff growing out in the game. It's actually very nice walls. I like them. What I'm liking the most right now is actually this, where it pumps out with this little boop, orange section here where it's like flat straight out. It has a little tiny black divider, which looks like it might actually be modeled in there before it jumps up a little bit or down over here where it's flanging out before going straight across and flanging back inwards. Oh, I love that. It's like, sort of like a pipe or something you'd see in an engine or something like that. Very, very cool. And then, of course, this big black panel here that the whole thing looks like you could just unscrew it and it'd pop off and you'd have some machinery in there. Heading into the cockpit, this is a very strange cockpit. So much glass. Great field of view in here. Of course, if your character's FOV was greater than 60, you could actually use it. But pretty damn amazing view. When you're sitting in this ship and it's flying about, you actually sometimes like, am I in a cockpit? I can't see anything. The cockpit itself, like the actual seat, is insane, because remember I said this ship rotates, so the cockpit chairs actually rotate as well as the whole thing rotates about. It's kind of crazy, actually. I mean, look at the detail in this. I think they're actually using some of the same stuff right here that they use on the engines, but they're textured differently. I'll show you that when we get outside. But you can see these panels that reach down, the nice little cut-ins there, this larger section in the middle that cylindrically spins around it with its gently curved, shiny metal right there, and all these little tiny arches, I say arches, bits reaching out to hold and really grasp it all, and you see all the little screws in there. The screws are just texture work, but they still work, and they've lined them up very well to be on either side of it. Very, very awesome. And then, of course, this is all texture work here, but it works very well to have it curved in and then back out again as if it's some sort of large machine where it's magnetically run up and spin it about. Very cool. I also love the fact that this gently arches back out. It all feels... Oh, I love it. And these big metal panels here, they're actually elevated off of this bottom metal here, and including the back metal behind it as well. And then we have some of this little handle here we've talked about before. Pretty nifty stuff, ain't it? And then panning to our right, there is so much detail on this chair. It is insane. We do have some texture or geometry faux going on here, I think, or I don't think this is supposed to have this almost tooth-like pattern. I think it's supposed to be more smooth, but I can't be sure at this moment. Oh my god, look at this line. This line right here, follow this. As it comes down, it bends around, it reaches out and becomes this huge section right here, but they have these little flanges out here with a locked into place like it's holding together with this, also going through and maybe merging in with this back piece right here. And then it carries on, goes back to being thin, has a sharp angle right here. The geometry looks a bit squibbly at times, but then it reaches down around this whole cylindrical piece where it actually looks like it might be pressed in, or this cylindrical piece doesn't reach out as far as this cylindrical piece. Very cool. And then it goes and arches back out down there. And let's go ahead and look downwards a little bit here. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it seems like it merges back in. In fact, I can't tell, but it probably continues down. Definitely looks like it merges back to the other side, which means the whole thing is like one big piece sort of holding the chair in place. And you can see some little screws here with a second piece that pops out and holds onto this little like oxygen tank thing, which the oxygen tank itself has this nice curve, bumps out in a hard angle down, bumps back in, and then carries the rest of the way down. and it actually looks like it's got a little indentation into that bumped out bit for this specifically to clamp into it, which is just awesome, honestly. Does it have that? It's hard to tell at a few angles. I guess it doesn't, but it looked like it from the other angle. Still very cool though, the geometry there. What else do we have? Some little, looks like geometry issues. Oh my god. Let's not do that, come on. Some little geometry issues here, it looks like, where we're getting these little triangles. I honestly don't know how to fix these. I get these in some of the stuff I make, and I know there's a way to fix it, but I can never figure it out for the life of me. But yeah, showing up, I guess we can just ignore it, pretending it's like this is a piece of plastic and that's the way it was molded in some way. It left those, but we do have a nice little bump up here with our foot pedals, ta-da, and we got a nice little bit of silver here that runs along it where it bumps up to make sure your toes can bump something so they don't just slip off the end of it. And again, these little tiny MISC symbols, looks like they're stretched again. I don't know if they're purposely doing this. Maybe they try to break things up. Maybe they're stretching them out a little bit on purpose at this point, since we found a few of these. Carrying into the body, you can see some of the texture work here. The resolution, it's so close to the edges, it starts to get it's hard to tell if this is supposed to be pushing inwards, like it looks like it's there, or bumping outwards, which it looks like it is there. It's a little bit hard on the texture work. This whole panel is actually pretty cool though, because these feet pedal look like they both move independently. They're attached to this, which whole thing looks like it moves as well, like this the whole thing could fold up for storage. Pretty nifty there. It's a little hard to tell, move around and show detail in here is well, it's a cramped cockpit, ain't it? What do we got? The chair itself, our glares are going crazy here on a few things. We got this huge silver piece which bumps out and bumps back in. A lot of that sort of for your shoulders. You notice that on a lot of chairs, it'll flange out, flail out, however you want to say that. The armrests here are pretty complex pieces. As you can see, this is like one piece here where it looks like it might have a joint under this, which connects into this piece and this piece, sort of holding through it where the piston or cylinder would go, and that would swing inwards again for storage, and then this joint would allow it to swing up, I'm assuming, so these would probably be going across right around here. Don't be sitting there, it looks like they could go tink and then fling up and break your neck if you're sitting in the chair when that happens. Pretty cool that we have another little orange, or pardon, red thing popping out down here with a nice little bit of negative space. And again, it's similar to this big piece here we were talking about earlier that sort of goes along everything holding it together. It sort of has the same thing here. Doesn't look like it has much purpose, but it does break it up and keep it very, very interesting. Oh my goodness, I'm sweating. And you can see on the bottom, if we were to look here, it looks like this sort of piece is designed to be a through point. I think we've seen this in some of these other little pieces here on other MISC ships again, but this time, of course, this looks like it's designed, instead of letting the whole chair here rotate forward and backwards to adjust your back, it's more of this piece here will rotate upwards for you. And you got some cool cables that look like they're just coming out of the metal, unfortunately, but hopefully nobody's going to look at that and see that. Let's look up a little bit. Oh wow, I just realized that it's a little hard to see here, it's a little washed out, but there's negative space in the trigger there. Pretty cool stuff, that. Up here above you, you've got, again, this sort of red black metal that heads up, bumps up, comes back down, and a 1,000,000,001 sort of alien isolation, or not alien isolation, but almost, you know, alien style screens, except for they're all flat, little tiny vent-like things attached to them all. And I believe if we can hop into this, there we go, you can see they all fold down, and usually they have holographic projections coming off of them, which is very, very cool. Can we actually aim our... I'm trying to look up, it's not really letting us do much, but it is very, very nifty. Let's get out of the seat, shall we? Hold F there and hop back out. Pretty damn cool. I'm a big fan of the ship. I'm probably not going to keep it, as you know, usually I buy a ship and then do a quick look at it and then return it for store credit so I can buy another one. Probably not going to keep it, even though I do like it. If I didn't have some larger ships, I might buy this just to start out with and use it as a small cargo runner to try to gain more money to buy bigger ships in the game once the game is, you know, farther along. Because remember, you can spend a huge amount of money on Star Citizen ships. I have a referral code in the beginning if you want to sign up. But one of the main ideas is you don't have to. You can buy a cheap ship with a starter package and you're good to go from there. Alrighty, what else do we have? All those buttons there we couldn't see when we were sitting in the seat, unfortunately. Looks like they're all modeled in with little dividers in between them and switches and buttons. Even more little screens there. Shame we couldn't see all that. Pretty cool that there's another joint here, like this whole thing is supposed to be able to move independently of the chair, so this whole thing is just like a death trap, really. But you can see it comes out, goes in, and then comes the rest of the way, almost like air vents, textured in, a little bump out there, some geometry issues you can see when the light flickers. Again, don't know how to fix those, can't give feedback on that. Always have issues with that myself. I guess just add more geometry. Anyway. Pretty cool bump up right there before it goes to a flat area behind that. It's all very, very cool. I mean, you can even see out the side here, we have this huge sort of doop, doop, flat surface and then rounded out to connect into the outer area. Nice bevels around the window edge. It's just such a cool thing. Such a cool thing. I mean, and in the center here, we get these really cool lines here. Doop, doop. Comes out at a different angle, then whoop, whoop, back in, carries it here. You can see it's like two separate pieces of metal right here, but this piece of metal sort of looks like it's holding the both of them together by reaching over the other one. It's almost like these two would be welded together there, and it's just holding it. Very nifty. A little bit odd that this here crunches, feels so thin right here before becoming so big, but I think we can maybe ignore it. It's also because of the angle. I think if I move forward, yeah, it looks a bit better. So it's just the angle really that's throwing us off there. And of course it carries on to the same thing on the ceiling, which looks just absolutely awesome. Then we have the same sort of thing with supports reaching out, holding onto it over there. It's awesome, ain't it? It's awesome. Let's get out of here, shall we? Stand up and get ourselves out of here. Oh no! I'm in the ceiling. Well, let's start a look at the outside of the ship, shall we? And let's just do a quick hoppity-dop, hoppity-dop. And when I said hoppity-dop, I really meant I was going to poke around and get myself glitched back up onto the roof of the ship, because the top and bottom of the ship are very similar, if not exactly the same. There's going to be some minor differences, but we're really only going to look at one side and then hop it into outer space. And the ship's outside is actually quite simple in a lot of ways. Unlike a lot of other ships where they have lots of little tiny geometric breakup, a lot of this ship's beauty actually comes from how simple the actual flow of the ship is. So instead of having all those hard angles like a lot of Aegis ships where they sort of flow together in this ending up creating a smooth flow but with a lot of hard angles, this has a lot of larger, smoother things. And we can actually see those from right here. If we look at this huge thing right here that just gently comes up, it's still an angle, but it gently comes up. It's also pushed down right there. So there is geometric detail, but it's not necessarily as busy or as quick as, let's say, the Gladius. And like Gladius is still probably one of my favorite ships just for the amount of detail it has, because it is just like every foot there is another change in geometry. But this has a lot of larger, smoother things like this here. You can see this cylindrical domed piece, which is, I believe, your maneuvering thruster. So let's actually run over to it. Not much of an extremely close look if we're standing 40 feet away from it. There you go. Awesome little thing, and you can see sort of like a modern day space shuttle, even though space shuttles are tired, but sort of like a modern day spacecraft. You can see we have little jet things that would point out in each direction. These little guys right here, if you don't know what I'm talking about, allowing you to move the ship in any of those directions or possibly maneuver it if that jets out. Pretty cool. You can see texture detail like this is awesome as well. The fact that it lines up these two little guys. This is missing one because, of course, this would be meeting up with that little guy right here, which is below it, assuming these two still connect, instead of having a piece of metal between the two of these under the floorboards. Pretty damn nifty stuff. Heading over to the very end of the wing, we do have some geometric cut down that you don't notice from afar, where you can see these area here, there's a very clear gap, and it leads over and comes out and over, and this follows the same line, but it doesn't come in as far as this one did, creating a nice difference, basically, a mirroring of each other in a slightly offset manner. And you can see the texture work below it sort of shows the same thing, a little bit goopy there, but it does shoot up and back. You can see they also have some nice little bits of geometry detail here with this shooting over, up, and then back, with a little tiny bit in the middle that shoots all the way up and connects to it. Very nice. Like that an awful lot. You can see behind it, we do have these large jet things that shoot out the whole back of this. I will go ahead and walk past those in a little bit, but not right now. I want to get the basic shapes over here done first. You can see this large, beautiful panel here, which is pretty much a flat surface all right here, but it does curve downwards a little bit right there before coming around its nice edge. And this little light there, it looks a bit confusing. I'm not sure what they're going for with that, but let's assume maybe 1 billion little LED lights. Yeah. Maybe? I don't know. I think the textures are being a bit silly. Might be a material that's just not done yet. Over here, this is pretty nifty, where we have this huge pipe that comes out, around, and then back down. Some of the stuff I know with this ship is actually very, very cool, where I believe that's an output thruster there, but when this ship rotates back around into its flight mode, which I'll be showing in a bit, that disconnects, because right now it's connected in to sort of the engine through this, but it won't necessarily need that once it's up and flying, I think. Can't remember exactly how those change, but they do change. Oh no, that's... Alright, well, you can look at some details in here, in an area that is usually quite difficult to access. Look at those pipes that are leading down from the ceiling, little connectors holding them together, pipes coming out from the side wall there. Very, very cool. This huge connection piece right in front of us holding it together. I mean, look at this. This is awesome, actually, right here. This piece right here, just whoop, holding in this huge sort of wing thing. If I'm right, there should be another one directly above us. Yep. Very, very, very cool. I love that. That's very awesome. And look at all the detail on this sort of thing that connects into the engine right here next to us, or the thruster, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, these aren't actually modeled in. These are just texture, but they still work very well. But I love these large, like, teeth that are reaching down and holding it all together. And I love the outcroppings in between some of them, especially these outcroppings right here are right next to this huger puck right here, which holds in this tube that comes out and goes around. I love that they have these cylindrical things in here. You can barely see them usually, but we're in here right now with this sort of strap holding them all together. Very, very cool. Let's go ahead and see. Can we get out of this right now? Thank you very much. That wasn't very hard at all to get out of there. Coolio. And you can see those little metal things I was saying that were connecting these little guys right here that I said were connecting up to a plane. They're actually these awesome, big, cylindrical, almost egg-shaped, I'd want to say, but oval-shaped things, like a rectangle with two oval rounded bits on the end of it. Very, very cool. I love that. And I love the way they stretch outwards from there before going back into a just the same exact shape right here around the whole thing. Love that. And actually, can we go ahead and crouch down right now? How do these actually... Yeah, it looks like they just disappear into the back there. They might have actually a little tiny bit of geometry detail right here to allow this thing to pivot on that point right there, and they're connected into it. And you also see we have these lift ups that lead to this big metal plane here that sort of defends that from everything else. Oh my god, look at that shape. Oh, hold on, I got a phone. Anyway, you can see we got these nice little planes right here coming down at an angle, and the phone was just an alarm. And then they head back to this huge flat surface here, which I love. I love it. It's just a big pointless thing to defend it, right? Except for look here. It suddenly has this divider and this angle here, and it goes into this big blue thing. And what is this nonsense? Oh, well, it's the front of the ship. It just merges gently into the front of the ship, and you can see it's actually separated out from this part of the ship over there. And you see we have these little tiny things here, fins, almost like an intake right here in their own big rectangular shelving or housing. And look at this little like pylon that sticks out, grabbing it, holding it all together. This light with that same texture I love so much. Little tiny puck holding out the screw points. The way it merges, it looks like a, it's just like almost modern day aircraft mixed with a bit of Star Wars or something. I love it so much. Oh, this ship. Look at this negative space right there. And I mean, it's not just like a big flat piece of metal either, because look here, it starts curving upwards, actually, and then they have the negative space there. This huge pod thing, same sort of shape we saw in that vent, but same sort of pod thing bumping up, where you could imagine a component or something being down there. Our thrusters, the gosh darn beautiful blue glow. We're about to get ourselves stuck in there again, I suspect, but beautiful blue glow. It looks like something out of, what was that movie? I wanted to say Prometheus, but that wasn't it. Can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it reminds me of some proper sci-fi stuff we've seen with the giant spheres. Pretty cool, though, the way these go over and then bump up, grabbing onto the upper area, reaching up like a temple or something. I love the little bits of detail there with that. I like the fact that this is also a separate piece here, a darker piece of metal reaching out as if it's a different subcomponent, and that this metal here is just holding everything together, shielding it a little bit. Very, very nifty. Let's go ahead and move ourselves about right here to get right on top of it if we can. Look down there, very interesting glowing blue sight. You can see these little jump outs with these. They sort of keep the same thing, and we have these jump out here and here, and then they rotate it 45 degrees. You have the jump outs here and here, rotate it 45 again, you'll have the jump out below us and there. So you can see it's almost like steps as it rotates down 45 degrees every time. Pretty dang cool, that. I love the logic behind it. This simple little, almost hidden logic. Let's hop over here to this. It looks like it is connected in right here to a wing. It's a little hard to see, but if we go to there, you can see it's almost like a circular piece behind this here, where on our left, let's go ahead and move our camera just a bit. There we go. On our left, it doesn't look like it's actually touching. This piece here isn't actually touching this, whereas here you can see there's another little cylindrical piece right here bulging out to connect it into the main body of the ship. And you'll see how this all works once we get up into flying this thing in a few minutes here. Huge wing flange here, I guess, to defend it from burning the actual ship. And then this sort of not such huge wing flange here, which is also going to rotate up if memory serves. But it's still pretty cool that you have this darker metal here, and then lighter metal on the top and the bottom, as well as divider breakups here. And this almost looks like these could allow it to rotate and flip out. It's very nifty stuff. I love it a lot. Oh, I love it. Especially the metal heading there, coming up and then out. It's these little, almost feels like an antenna of these little pieces reaching out. It's just gorgeous. I adore it. I adore it. I adore it. In fact, I'm pretty sure these do flip out now I look at it and remember these little guys right here with the red light, this whole wing piece that feels divided. And I was just mentioning how it looks like it had joints. If we can get our face right in here. There we go. Yeah, there's the joints right there. Pretty obvious, aren't they? You got a joint piece right here and a joint piece right there. The geometry is a little bit harsh right here. The textures don't really hold up at this range for that guy. It does for this. But overall, pretty nifty. And once you see it in space, I think you'll be pretty blown away by it all. Now, here's these vent things I was talking about before. I suspect that this piece right here isn't supposed to be here. It looks like, to me, it's just a piece of random geometry that's been stuck or left in there. Who knows, maybe it's intentional, but it doesn't feel particularly intentional. But these vents are pretty damn nifty. Giant rectangle, basically, with smooth little edges right here and here. Same with these over here, where they seem to get a little bit smaller. Can we turn on our flashlight? I don't have a helmet on. Dang it. But anyway, you can see nice little openings here, and I love the fact that it goes from one big one to, what is this, 6 small ones, and then it's actually more like 4 small ones of this size, and they get really long right here before it leads to the end of the ship where it flanges out, and you get this sort of like divider in here, a little bit odd, but it works, I guess, before flat thing with a rounded end to mash into that large sort of puck piece we had over here at the very end. I wanted to call it a puck, but this sort of ender top piece, which actually from this angle looks like it could rotate around with these little pieces right here. But of course we saw those large connectors, so I doubt it will. Oh, pretty nifty. And of course, like I said before, the top and bottom of this ship are very similar. There's a few minor differences, but overall it's pretty much the same. Yeah, even no step signs on the bottom. You can see these little nice little pop-outs here that were up top. A lot of nice texture work. The texture work on this is very, very awesome. I usually don't necessarily talk about the texture work too much, but it just needs to be pointed out. Let's squeeze ourselves to get down here. Our face has gone through some things. All right, let's just lay on the floor, shall we? There we go. And you can see the same thing I was talking about. Remember how I said those pieces were used on the engine and on the seat? Well, doesn't this look familiar? 2 little bits of negative space, little dot things connected onto this other thing. So yeah, same sort of thing here is used on the chair in the cockpit. But we do have these awesome little things where you almost imagine them shooting sparks out like a space shuttle launch or something like that. Maybe coolant, maybe some sort of directional thing. Who knows? But pretty nifty. Geometry is a little bit low there, but I think it'll be fine because you're usually not going to be sticking your face right against this. I had to crawl under the ship to get these pretty much. I guess you could have walked over from over there, but still, pretty nifty stuff. What else do we have in here? Let's go ahead and turn off our mouse there so we can look up a little bit. Oh, look at that detail in there. I love that pipe that's coming down from the top. What else do we have? If we can squeeze ourselves over. I love these little orange triangle things that just vanished, actually. That was a little bit odd. Must have an LOD issue, where if you can't see the center point of the thruster, they go away. Is that correct? No, they're still there. I don't know what's going on. Some LED issue, but I do love these little things sticking out from the bottom. Pretty nifty. Yeah. It's a good thruster. Alrighty, what else do we have to show? I think that's about it. A few more things I'd like to point out. If we could run around to the front of the ship, please. Thank you very much. Just little bulge outs like this, sort of like I was talking about earlier, that are like an airplane, something or another from the modern day. Cylindrical bulge out there. Feels very modern day, but still high tech. You can see the negative space there between all these pieces. Couldn't really tell that from above when I was originally pointing out these fins and stuff. Remember how in the cockpit I was talking about that piece that sort of juts out, that sort of just feels like it merges in with the rest of it? You can see here, it does just jut out to give you some artistic expression for it does feel like it's merging out. So if you looked out that window, you wouldn't just see necessarily metal right there, or the workings of the ship. Pretty nifty. The actual cockpit bubbles here, something you can't really tell from the inside, is the fact that they do have these bulges up, which almost gives it like a bug face for the chairs to rotate freely inside there without some worry about collision. Pretty nifty. Yeah, and I think that's about it for this. Let's hop back up on top of the ship. Nice little detail there. I like the angle that comes down to connect into it. Even I wish there was a little bit of something around the base of it. Pretty nifty stuff. Pretty nifty stuff. Let's go ahead and get back on top of it really quick. So, we're back on top of it, and just something I didn't look at was just the center point here. Of course, we have our large door here, which I love, and actually looking at it now, I thought these were just lights, but it looks like these are actually little tiny openings that lead in there. They're probably done with the texture work, but pretty damn nifty. I also like the fact that this is like its own big clamp, like this huge section here, sort of like its own clamp to hold into clamps on and holds onto the outside, not just the inner puck stuff we talked about. Got our darker area here with these slightly lighter metal bits reaching out, pretty nifty. And then these little guys bumping out as well, like screws that would almost screw into the intersection. They don't actually do that, but it gives you that feeling. Heading down the center here, we have the slightly darker metal. It might just be the lighting, but the bumped down metal here, which is nifty, where the metal here drops down, following the same design as that door. And then behind us is where it gets really interesting, because that's where we have this thing in the middle sort of gently grow out of it as if it's rising out of the ocean. Hey, it's even blue. And then on the sides we have these large clamps that I love. These are almost like ribs reaching around it and then dropping down, and I presume these go along the bottom side of it as well. And of course, from this thing here in the center that's reaching out of it, we do have this lighter silver metal here. It's just texture work, but I love it because it breaks it up. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go get my niece from the airport here in a second. And it carries on to just more details here. Where it's all texture work, but it's very cool how it breaks up what would otherwise be a rather simplistic sheet of metal. Oh, damn, it's so cool, isn't it? Like this here where it gently curves down, and then this curves down as well. Let's see. We got little pipes here that we had seen before. Remember when we were stuck down there, we saw these pipes reaching down. I love the texture work there. That makes it look like it's coming out of something. What else do we have? Just look at the texture work. Look at that. This indentation right here and here, because remember, this whole thing spins. Oh my god, I love that. And all the little tiny metal bolts you can see everywhere. Absolutely adore that, even though they're not actually modeled in. Love this tink, tink, tink. And then we have some more stuff shooting up right here where it bumps back out. There we go. Before merging back in. So it's like a big cylinder sticking out of a rectangle, reaching back into like this weird... Well, look at this. It bulges out for the bug eyes. So it's like a big bug eye metal section as well as glass section. And then this sort of almost oval-shaped whole front section, which is similar to the bug thing. But this cylinder reaches and grabs into it as the cylinder reaches out, flattens out, and then goes back in with these nice little connectors that reach out and clink, clink, clamp into this sort of cover. And of course, this little guy right here reaching out, similar to that. Let's run around to the front and crouch real quick. Actually lay down if we can. Hopefully we don't go into the air. There we go. Oh my god, did you see all the detail in there? That was incredible. All those little vent things, and I think a light. Nifty, nifty stuff. Nifty, nifty stuff. Absolutely adore that. And from the front, what I was saying about the front is that it goes from square to cylinder to this sort of ovalish shaped thing right here behind the actual cockpit. Pretty nifty. I think the only other thing we have to look at now before going up into space is, yeah, the landing gear area here, which is pretty cool. We got our standard sort of reaching up before having an arch thing in all of these. Nifty, nifty. Nice little cables in there. Don't see any serious graphical issues in here, or any really. Yeah, all holds up pretty well. Nice little attention to detail with these things reaching out and bulging back in so they can pull up nice and well like. It kind of looks like that doesn't line up, but I'm assuming there's a joint between the two of those. I can look to my right and probably see, yep, they do indeed reach between the two of them. Works well. Landing gear themselves, nice handle bit. Geometry, falling a little, nah, it's fine. Looked a little bit blobby from a few angles, but you can see a huge amount of detail in there. This is just a rectangular piece right here, but it does merge into this in an interesting way before coming up, flat, over. This actually keeps the MISC design of having a curve there before going flat all the way up. Nice little detail here with these reaching down through a cylinder point here, down, bending inwards before going here with a nice little flat thing to break it up. Negative space is nice. And of course this huge darker space here with it bumping up and around. Very, very cool. These reaching up, a little bit of blandness right here with this just big bland bit there, as well as these, but it is a MISC ship, so you're going to have some basic large shapes. This very similar to the thing that we had on the side of the chair with the geometry weirdness. Looks fine with this one though. And then on the front we have this large ovalish cylinder thing, whoop, whoop, before having it bump up and over and down. Cool. Even got some cables coming out of this weird darker thing, which looks like it has a flat front to it. Does it? It's indented, even better. So it's, oh wow, look at that. It curves around. It's got an indentation right there, and in the front it curves back around. Instead of just going all the way down and disappearing, it has this indentation where it's cut in right there with a flat surface, and this just gerbils in there and connects on up. Pretty damn nifty. Pretty damn nifty. And you can see some detail. It gets a bit bland up here at the top where it just merges in, but you can see we do have these strut supports that pop out and go through to connect these two up, and then this reaches back down to here with that cylinder and then all that stuff we talked about before. The shape of this is flat, straight down, curves over, goes in, and then goes back up to the whole piston thing. Almost looks like these are welded together like they shouldn't be able to move, but I'm assuming they move, so it works. What else do we have? Just a large shape coming down from there, and it looks like maybe some weirdness over there. Oh yeah, it's not the same on the left and right. So it's got some sort of, like a little pipe that reaches into it and connects in. Don't know why you'd have a pipe going to a joint exactly like that, but let's assume it's a vacuum cleaner. It sort of looks like that. No pucks connecting in there, but we do have these support things here holding them together, I guess. Don't know how this whole thing works. I guess we'll have to pay attention once we're flying it about. Anyway, a little quick on that, but I think that's about it. I need to go pick up my niece, but for you, it'll just be a second here of static, and we should be in space flying about. And there we go, we are now up in the Arena Commander module flying about in this fantastic ship. And as you can see, it can indeed fly in this wing form. But if we were to rotate our camera around by holding Z, you can see our landing gears are still there. Which is pretty cool because you also can see that all the light sort of cascading from different areas on the ship. Lots of little running lights. I actually didn't see while we were doing our ACL look. In fact, I can go ahead and hold F right now, but we actually can get out of it, and you can hop out of this ship. Now, a bit of a funny thing when it comes to hopping out of the ship while in flight. Remember how I said it can change modes, and we're currently in the same mode we were in the hangar to keep things consistent. But one of the things is that when it's in the other mode, it can sometimes be a bit difficult to get in and out of the cockpit into the rest of the ship, as in probably kind of impossible last time I checked. Anyway, since we're now up here, we can go ahead and press T, turn on our light, and actually look into the thruster here, and you see all those little red arrows I was talking about. They're actually part of the engine here. They're these big things that stick down and allow this whole thing to presumably point those inwards to control the thrust vector a little bit. You can see the beautiful glowing sphere of awesomeness that is sitting in here with some nice texture detail on it. Pretty cool. Our landing gears once again. We didn't really get, yeah, we looked at those over there. We didn't get much of a close look at this one, but it looks like it's pretty much all the similar things, just in different sizes. These are pretty awesome. I love the detail. Look at that, the joint right there, and then another joint right there. Pretty dang nifty. Oh, I have an interact prompt that'll close up the door right here. Pretty cool. I don't think we really have much else to show floating around it like this. It's, like I said, the top and bottom are pretty much the same, but I have to say the ship does look a lot better once you're flying about like this. Up close it still looked good, but you really see, well, the reason I truly like this ship from this angle here. Anyway, let's go ahead and fly back in there, hop back in the cockpit. I'll switch it over to the other mode, which is pretty dang cool. And you do that currently in version 2.5, I believe is what we're live on, by going ahead and pressing the, my character's freaking out a bit there. Oh, I bumped the ship. There we go. Press that button, close those doors up. Blink. Oh, nice and safe. By pressing the in button while we're in the seat here. So let's hop back into this, pop ourselves into third person here. And there's all those controls I was talking about at the top there lighting up. Bit of a glare there on them right now, kind of blinding glare, making it nigh impossible to see things. I'm sure they'll tweak that as time goes on. Anyway, let's go ahead, rotate our view about, and let's go ahead and press the in button, shall we? So let's move our camera so we can actually see those landing gears switch back in, shall we? There we go. Pressing it right now. that happens really quick, doesn't it? Let's rotate our camera about here if we can. Ooh. There we go. So you can see the landing gears and everything closed up. You can see it is pretty much a mirror design of the left and right. Those wings that I was talking about before have popped out. I don't think we can actually get our mouse to show up while in third person, but you can see the little wings I was talking about on top of the wings have popped out. Let's go ahead and press that again, because it is such a very cool transition. Little doors pop open, the whole thing rotates around, and there we go, little landing gears pop out. And of course those wings open and close as we do that. Hell, I just realized why those little, I called them almost like antennas sticking out from the ship exist. It's because the wings actually slide on the railing there. So you can see they slide in and then close up. It's pretty dang awesome. I love this ship. Like I said, I don't think I'll end up keeping it, but it is just an impressive piece of work. And of course, oh, look at that. Those big engines, they actually go ahead. And all those little things I was pointing out on, they actually move as well. So let's once again press in. You can see the whole thing moves into the engine before it rotates up. And then back out again. It's pretty dang awesome. You can also see, and let's actually try to, if we can right now, can we get out of the cockpit? There we go. Now, we might not be able to get to the rest of the ship, because remember, as I said, it's a bit finicky. Okay, well, it threw us out of it, so that's good. Yeah, you can see the door in there is closed. It's a bit finicky, and the whole ship is now rotating, which isn't exactly brilliant. Doesn't necessarily keep its inertial dampers on. But anyway, as I was saying previously, remember there was that connection puck I was sort of talking about where the thrust moves through it? This is it right here. You can see a nice amount of detail, a nice amount of polygons here to keep its rounded shape. Pretty nice, and that's of course that one that I said led up and came all the way through to connect out of, I believe it's this little thruster guy right here to allow it to reverse when it is in its fully folded up state. Pretty cool. And of course we can see a little bit better these little guys that we were looking at earlier when we were stuck in there. It's pretty dang cool. You can even see a little bit more detail right in here with all these support struts reaching out and holding it all together. I love this thing. It's such a beautiful ship. I think it's the first MISC ship I've really just gone a bit gaga over. I love it. And of course, now we should be flying like this, as the ship would intend to be flying forward like that. Anyway, let's go ahead, and before it drifts into that beam, hop back in there and get back into the cockpit. I'm going to pop the back hatch open here, because I believe we will not be able to get over to the actual flight area from here. Yeah, as you can see there, the doors have closed. Yeah, actually I can't even, there we go, I can squeeze forward and glitch through it in there, but those doors are closed as it's rotated about. It's quite the odd thing. There we are. We press Z. We can even do an F4, F4 again, and you can see we're sitting in the top seat there and how they've rotated about. I think, yeah, this should allow us to show it a little bit better if we go ahead and press in now. And see the seats sort of hold still and everything rotates, which is pretty dang awesome. Pretty damn awesome, actually. I love it. It's a small ship, no restrooms or anything, but it's awesome. Anyway, now that we've converted to the flight mode, I'll go ahead and just fly it about a little tiny bit. And let's go ahead and do an F4 again and zoom ourselves out. I should have closed that back door. There's not currently a way to like really easily close that door, unfortunately, but it'll have to do, I guess. And let's go ahead and start flying about a little tiny bit here, shall we? So I got a throttle here. I'll throttle us up. It's such a beautiful ship, the way it moves. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. And if you look at the very top there, you can see tiny little bits of thrust coming out of that cylindrical puck thing I was talking about. So those are for maneuvering indeed. So awesome. I love this ship. It's a fantastic craft. And you see it does have a few little weapons mounted to it. I do find it odd that it's only got 2 weapons mounted. I would expect 4, one on the top of the wing, one on the bottom of the wing, but no such luck with that. Let's go ahead. We should probably, well, we're probably going to crash here since I can't exactly tell where we're going. There we go. Bring ourselves back around here. It's a great craft. I really love it. Anyway, guys and gals, that's pretty much it for this extremely close look at this ship. It, as per usual, was a lot longer than I originally intended. Here I was thinking, hey, it's a small ship, and then I got inside it and, well, fell in love with some of the design choices in there. The exterior, we got past that pretty quick. You can kind of see why I thought we'd get past the exterior pretty quick, because a lot of it is just relatively smooth shapes. Pretty nifty. Let's keep ourselves on the exterior view, shall we? Even if the back door's open, it still looks like a pretty nifty ship. I mean, look at this thing. The motion blur on the cockpit inside sort of ruins the look a little bit, because of course there shouldn't be any motion blur if our camera is moving along with it all, but oh, it's a pretty damn cool thing. Love this ship, even if we're about to crash, I think. I can't really tell. No UI, of course. As it should be, basically. God, the sound is so cool, too, though. Oh, I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. Look at that ship. How can you not love that ship? Oh my god, how did we not crash? Anyway, guys and gals, that is it. If you'd like to buy this ship, it should be on the Robert Space Industries website. So used to say engineers, almost misspoke there. Remember, if you're planning on buying into the game, there is a referral link down in the description below. If you already bought into it, you don't have to buy an expensive ship. You can buy the cheapest dang ship and game package out there. Remember that. So even if I show a $1,000 ship, you don't have to buy a $1,000 ship. In fact, I would suggest against it. If you like the game, buy in at the cheapest package you want, and as you play the game, once the game evolves to a point where you can earn in-game currency more readily and buy ships in-game, well, there won't be a single ship out there that you won't be able to acquire through just gameplay. But hey, if you want to support the project more, you can always go ahead and buy one of these silly expensive ships. And as I said, if you're signing up for the first time, go ahead and use that referral code. I get a little kickback. You get like 5,000 credits in-game or whatnot. Or there should be a randomized one if you go ahead and check that asteroid scared me, the Star Citizen subreddit. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, we lost a wing. We've lost a wing. We've lost a wing. Let's find our throttle and throttle down. Okay. Okay. That's, I've throttled down. Let's press in. Okay, let's press V to switch to a slower speed and press in. Okay, seems like some stuff might not be responding. Let's get into the front view so I can see what the hell's going on. We lost some maneuverability. Our speed is at 40-something, even though our throttle's to 0. Come on, slow us down. Why aren't you slowing us down? I guess probably because we lost a lot of thrusters. So if we point ourselves this way, the thrust should start pushing and slowing us up. Good. We're still moving, as you can see from the space dust. Okay, well, let's decouple and get our rumpus facing the exact opposite direction of where we're going, and then turn that back on. Hey! Now we're going the other way. Great. Terrible thing about decoupled mode is when you turn it back on, the ship does get a bit of it sets your throttle to wherever speed you're going, which if you're trying to use it to stop, well, that means basically it's going to go ahead and put you up to some speed going in the direction you don't want to go. There we go. That got us mostly to stop. Groovy. Alright. Well, yeah, that's this ship. It took a bit of a beating. In fact, we can't even switch out of our flight mode now. But, yeah. Pretty cool, ain't it? Even the damage states. We can even finally see some of those on one of these ships. And, yeah, it took a little bit of a hit. Anyway, that is that, guys and gals. Thanks a bunch for watching. And I shall see you all next time. Ta-ta.